On a completely unrelated side note that is not related to this book, there's a fire across the street, and I'm pretty sure it's bonfire, but I'm afraid that it's going to, like, catch the house next to it on fire, and that's freaking me out. So, if I start screaming at some point during this video, you know why. Good morning, Abby, it's Friday, and once again, you have not uploaded a video yesterday, and may be up for punishment, and before anyone starts, this video is 100% educational, and you cannot punish me. Today, I am going to talk about Seraphina by Rachel Hotman. Don't you just love that cover art? Like, I seriously want a poster of this on my wall. Not even the words, just like the gosh dang art in the background. And before we start, I would like to say that this is a fantasy novel. And of course, fantasy novels often have made-up words, which is fine. But the problem with this book is that sometimes it doesn't actually explain what the made-up words mean. And I think that's supposed to create, like, immersion and put you into the world. But really, it just results in a confused Molly. Because I'm like, is that an actual word from real life? Or is it a made-up word, or what? For example, at one point, one of the characters tells Seraphina that they are a Dayanite, and Seraphina acts deeply shocked by this, but no one actually bothers to tell us what a Dayanite is. But if you look in the glossary that's randomly in the back of the book, I seriously didn't even know this existed. There's no indication in the actual book that it existed at all. But anyway, if you look at the glossary, it turns out that Dayanite is this universe's word for gay. That would have been good to know, considering that I shipped that character with a different character who is of the opposite gender for, like, a quarter of the book. So yeah, if you're reading this book for the first time, I would highly suggest that you flip to the back of the book and look at the glossary so that you actually know what words mean. However, right before the glossary, there's a list. It's called, like, the cast of characters. It's got all the characters in the book. Don't read that, because there are some minor spoilers in that character list. I have somehow managed to get this far in the video without actually talking about the plot of the book. So, the plot! This book takes place in a medieval-esque alternate universe place. Anyway, it's called Gored, and our main character is named Seraphina Dombeg, and she is the newest member of the royal court. She is the head composer guy's assistant. And a member of the Gored royal family just died. Yeah. And not only that, but he had his head chopped off, and no one can find his head. So yeah. And a lot of people think that this dude was killed by, wait for it, a dragon. In case you did not notice the giant green dragon that's on the cover, lots of dragons in this book. In fact, the dragons have the ability to turn into a human form, and this human form is called this word that I don't know how to pronounce. When I was reading the books, I pronounced it as Sarantris, but for the record, I have absolutely no idea if that is the correct pronunciation, so if it's not, please don't yell at me. So, like, Sarantris are very weird, because, like, they can feel human emotions while they're in their human forms, but the problem is dragons believe in this sort of omniscient presence called Ard, and Ard runs, like, purely off of logic and stuff to keep everything in order. The dragons see human emotions as going against Ard, and that freaks them out, so they suppress them, and if they get too emotional, they literally have their brain, like, exercised as if human emotions are like some sort of demon. Yeah, it's super weird, and this isn't even the weirdest part of the book, believe it or not. But anyway, 16 years ago, a Sarantris became too emotional for the dragons, but she decided to break away from Ard and run away from the dragon clan, and she had a child with a human, and that child's name was Seraphina. And this is a really big deal, because, like, never in the recorded history of the two species has there ever been an interbreeding situation between dragons and humans, and Seraphina is convinced that if either species finds out about her secret, they will just straight up kill her immediately. The thing is, since, like, the beginning of time, the dragons and humans have been warring with each other, because the humans view dragons as, like, these evil, sacrilegious beasts that don't feel emotion and need to die, whereas the dragons view the humans as these, like, little insignificant creatures that they shouldn't be concerned about and yet won't leave them the heck alone. But 40 years ago, the dragon leader, the Ardmagar, that is, like, my favorite word in the entire book. Ardmagar, 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 Ardmagar. God, I love that freaking word. But anyway, the Ardmagar and the Queen made a treaty 40 years ago that stopped their species from warring, and they've been trying to make the two species meet in the middle, like, ever since. It hasn't been working, though. But not only has a member of the royal court potentially been killed by a dragon, this is like 2 weeks before Treaty Eve, which is the big day where everyone, like, celebrates the anniversary of this treaty, and, like, the Ardmagar literally comes into the city and stuff. And not only are people still not 100% comfortable with dragons, a member of the royal family was just killed, potentially by a dragon, and the Ardmagar's gonna be coming to the city in 2 weeks, equals not gonna be good. But let's talk more about what the experience of being half-dragon is. For one thing, Seraphina has scales running all the way up her arms, both of them, and her stomach as well. You probably would have expected that. She has to have, like, some sort of physical crossover with the dragons. Why not scales? But she also has a few weird mental health caveats. For example, sometimes Seraphina will just randomly get visions and pass out in the middle of the street, or on a balcony, or wherever she happens to be standing at the time. Seraphina has two different types of visions. The first are called her maternal memories. They were given to her by her mother right before her mother died via some sort of weird dragon Jedi mind trick. These are things that her mother wanted her to know, but couldn't tell her, obviously, because, you know, she's dead. But the problem is, Seraphina can't just sit there and watch them all at once. They're triggered unexpectedly by random things, and Seraphina gets little to no warning when these things happen. So, like, 1 second she's just walking, and then 1 second she has, like, a headache, and then another second she's passed out cold on the ground, reliving some vision that her mother had. The second type of vision Seraphina has is of other people. They are people that she's never met before, but it's not just random. There is a certain group of people that she can have visions from. I believe the magic number is 17. So just to clarify, there are 17 people that Seraphina can have visions of. And here's where things get weird. In her mind, Seraphina has this sort of, like, she calls it her mind garden, and it's like an actual place, and it has representations of the people that she sees in her visions. Most of them are just kind of like bland things based off of like one characteristic that she sees of them a lot. For example, one of her visions is of like an 11-year-old boy who likes hanging upside down from trees a lot. So in her mind garden, the representation of that boy always has him hanging upside down from trees. However, the representations of these people get more detailed and more vivid and have them moving around a lot more as she meets them in real life. The thing is, these mental representations she gets of these people and puts in her mind garden, they act just like the real versions of these people. And if these people get agitated, Seraphina will start to get really intense headaches, and if they get agitated enough, she will just straight up pass out. The only way she can stop this is by going into her mind garden and making contact with that person and helping them solve whatever their problem is. And the worst thing is, Seraphina has no explanation for why this happens at all. It's just something she has to deal with, and she doesn't understand it. So yeah, not only does Seraphina have to deal with the constant fear of, like, randomly passing out, it turns out that Prince What's-His-Face may have actually been killed by a dragon, and that dragon may have been Seraphina's grandfather, so yeah. I have to say, this book does a fantastic job of world building. Like, the world feels so real that you could literally just walk out and touch it, and all the characters are very nice and well-rounded, and, like, I literally don't even have a favorite character from this book. My favorite character is all of the characters, well, except for Lucy and Kiggs. And yes, Kiggs is his real last name. Kiggs. Kiggs. That is such a hard word to, like, enunciate properly. Okay, technically, that was incorrect. I don't hate Lucian's character. I feel like he's a very nice character, along with every other character in the story. But I hate his role in the plot, because his side plot drags on, and on, and on, and on, and worse, it isn't even properly resolved by the end of this book, and there is a sequel to this book called Shadow Scale, so now if I ever read it, I bet you I'm gonna have to deal with more of this side plot crap in that book! And I'm sorry, I can't take much more of Lucy and Kiggs. The back of the book reads, when a member of the royal family is brutally murdered, Seraphina is drawn into the investigation alongside the dangerously perceptive and dashing Prince Lucian, and yep, he's gonna be a love interest. I don't need to read this book anymore. Okay, rule of thumb for, like, fantasy books. If a character is described as a dashing prince or a beautiful princess, they and the main character will be in a relationship by the end. 100%. guaranteed always happens. In fact, that is the question of the day. Find me an example where the dashing prince or beautiful princess, and they have to be described using those exact words in the story. Find me an example where they do not end up with the main character, because I guarantee you, you cannot find me an example. The book does its utmost of trying to convince you that Lucy and Seraphina will be together by the end, because, like, Seraphina's half dragon, which makes everything more complicated, and I mean literally everything. And Lucian is kind of engaged to another girl, which creates a bit of a problem, but by about a quarter of the way through the book, you know, they work really well together, and Lucian still wants to be her friend, even though she called him a swear word straight to his face, and Seraphina is always awkward around him, and she can't figure out why. Classic love story tropes. They're gonna be together by the end of the book. We don't need to go into this anymore. Now, a lot of love stories have some sort of obstacle that prevents the two main characters from being together, and I get that. I'm fine with that. But the thing is, Lucian is engaged to another girl, and Seraphina is half dragon. Done! Those are our problems. We don't need to create any more. Any problems that do not stem from those original two main problems do not need to exist. But the author goes out of her way to put more and more problems in Lucian and Seraphina's faces for literally 20 chapters. It never, ever ends. This would be completely fine with me if this were just a side plot, and it was made clear that it was a side plot, and we focused extensively on, like, the dragon and human relations, because that part of the book is really freaking interesting, and I loved it. And there is a lot of focus on it in the book, but any scene that has Lucian on it immediately gets shifted to being focused on this love story crap. The thing is, in the grand scheme of things, I don't care about Lucian Giggs. He can go die in the bonfire across the street. I don't give a crap. I want to see more dragons, because dragons are amazing. I want to see more fire breathing, and biting, and flying, and scales, and dragons, and Seraphina having weird visions. I want to see more dragon stuff, and less stupid Lucian Giggs stuff. Because I don't care about Lucian Giggs. Just less Kiggs, more dragons. Thank you. But even after this Kiggs bullcrap, I would still recommend this book to people very, very heavily. Because, like, dragons turning into humans and, like, suppressing emotions, who the crap even thinks of that? Apparently Rachel Hartman, and she does it very well, and it's a very interesting concept, and the world building is done so well, and all of the characters are so good. It is a very good book. I would like to read the sequel, because this book was very good, but there's just too much Kiggs. Too much Kiggs. Less Kiggs. More dragons. Hashtag less Kiggs, more dragons. And that was my book review. In addition to the question of the day of trying to accept my challenge or whatever, what do you think of the concept of dragons turning into humans? Because when I first heard that concept, I was like, well, dang. It's a pretty freaking interesting question. Abby, something tells me that you would absolutely adore this book. And I will see you tomorrow. No, I will not see you tomorrow, because tomorrow is Saturday. And we don't do weekends. So, I will see you on Monday. Yes, Monday. Monday is crappy, but you have to make a video on it, and I don't. So, I will see you on Monday.